Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Hello, everybody. I guess my slide comes up next. I hope it will. Yeah? Wonderful. Okay, so Karen tried to scare you about cybersecurity, and it's scary. I'll scare you more. But I want to talk a little bit about how do we help our customers. The main issue with selling cybersecurity is that most of the customers, especially small businesses, they think this will never happen to me. It happens with big guys. It happens with somebody else, but it will never happen to me. So it's extremely hard to sell security to those people who believe that nothing will happen, even with all those scary stories. So let me offer you a few talking points that you can use when you're building your business around cybersecurity. But I will start with the internet story that's somewhat true. So do you know what connects a horse to a space shuttle? Some people do, I guess. It's impossible to see, it's super bright. So the story was very simple. So there were Romans, and they had chariots that were designed to feed two horses. So they built those chariots, and they built the roads. By the way, amazing roads. In some places, they are still standing, and it's incredible what they were able to achieve. So they built the roads to use those chariots. And the chariots made the little grooves. So everybody had to build chariots the same size. Because if the size isn't correct, the wheels will get broken, it will not be working. So people had to adjust to that standard. So what happened after that? People building railroads used exactly the same distance to design the railroad tracks. They started building it in UK, and then the same people, the engineers from UK, built the railroads in the United States. And then at some point, they were designing a space shuttle, and they needed to build booster rockets. And they wanted to build really big booster rockets. But the problem was they needed to deliver them from Utah to the launch site. So they were limited by the railroad tracks. So that's how a horse, Roman horse, connects to the space shuttle. It's a fun story. I hope it will be not the only thing you'll remember from today, but that's going to be a fun story to tell your kids. But how it connects to cybersecurity. Probably you heard about this recent libzma attack. It's basically what happens is that all software built on libraries and components. A lot of software depends on open source. So everything depends on everything. And one way to attack is to compromise one of the components. So in this case with libzma, a group of very bad people and very smart people started to contribute into an open source library. And they were doing it for years. They got the reputation, and they were able to become the maintainer of that library. And then at some point, they put in a very well-engineered backdoor that allowed them to connect to Linux machines running OpenSSH, the software that's used for remote access. So imagine, we have all those great things, all this great IT infrastructure that is running everything for us, but it's built based on some libraries somewhere. So attackers, instead of building malware, can use the existing software that everybody uses, the legitimate software, and just replacing some of the components. And that's happening. This is not a unique situation. It happens all the time, happens everywhere. So that's one kind of scary story. Our IT infrastructure is extremely fragile. So what happens is that we have not only traditional malware that can be blocked by antiviruses. We have all those types of attacks, this advanced persistent threats, when somebody builds something and sits on your systems for years, and they may be using whatever software components to attack your systems. There are some attacks that are just using legitimate software that you have. Remote access, PowerShell, your Office applications, maybe Zoom, but Zoom, I know Zoom is very secure, so nothing will happen with Zoom. But the thing is, there's so many different ways to attack a system. And Karen was telling you about the AI, ransomware as a service. Now there's so many options. And cyber criminals, they have incentive to attack everybody. Because with AI, they can scale, meaning that instead of getting a ransom from one bank for £1 million, they can go after 1 million home users and get £1 from each. So the risk is very low, reward is pretty high, attacks is getting easier and easier. So everybody is constantly under attack. So how do we protect against it if the traditional security doesn't work anymore? We use integrated security. And one of the solutions is called Extended Detection and Response, XDR, and you'll hear a lot about it. And basically, what is XDR? It is a solution that collects a lot of information from your system, and then based on that information can define what is going on. Is it a threat? Is it an attack? Is it a legitimate process running on the system? So just use an example. This is a diagram that we use at Acronis when we explain what we're building. Basically, what is XDR? XDR is a software that is running on your system and collecting events. File is opened, file is modified, network event, some activity, applications open. There are millions and millions of different events happening on your system. That happens on your endpoint. But then you have cloud services. Your email provider, you have your identity provider. We also collect that information. So we know if something going on, we can use that data and correlate that data to build a model that will help us to identify any kind of suspicious behavior. To put it in a simple example, 80% of attacks happen through email, through phishing, through people going somewhere to some websites, providing their credentials, or downloading malware locally. It still happens. So imagine somebody gets an email that is very tricky email, used AI to trick that person, download some software, compromises their credentials, providing the login and password. So the system is compromised, network is compromised. With the XDR solution, you understand what's going on in the system. You understand there's malware. There's something malicious happening. You can block it. But given that you also have connection to your email provider, to your identity provider, the XDR can initiate removal of that email that is currently sitting in mailboxes of other employees. So whomever has not opened that email will be protected. And then, given that that XDR system is also talking to the identity provider, it will block the account of that user that was compromised. So it provides complete protection of all types of attacks. And that's what everybody will have to be deploying if they want to be protected. And when we talk about home users, whoa, I'm trying not to fall, interesting. If we talk about home users, it actually happens at home as well. So people think, okay, they attack businesses. Okay, I agree, small businesses as well is under attack. But what about home users? Nobody cares about home users. Actually, they do, because they can scale. AI allows them to scale almost indefinitely. But also, home users are the way to enter your network. Because what is a home user? Now, everybody works from home, or most people work from home. They access corporate networks. And if at least one device that has access to your data or to your network is compromised, it can be used to penetrate your network. It can be used to access your data, to steal your data, encrypt your data, corrupt your data. There are so many ways the device, one single device, can be exploited. So everybody has to be protected, not only the business infrastructure, home infrastructure. And this is the opportunity to sell to the customers, because you can easily explain to them that if you have at least one unprotected device, you're at risk. And the value of the data that you have access to is growing, because we all use AI tools. Now we have to use the AI tools, right? And AI learns from data. So one way to do a sophisticated attack is, instead of modifying your applications, instead of deploying malware, it's just to modify the data that you use. Adjusting the data that AI is using, you can get different results. So imagine AI that processes information to decide whether to provide a loan or not to provide a loan to a person. If you provide incorrect data to that AI, and it will learn some incorrect ways to assess the risk, it will start issuing loans to those people who are not supposed to get them, and potentially will hurt the business. So it's not only about stealing data, corrupting the data, it's also about feeding the wrong data to the AI that you use. So I want to finish talking about a few trends. So what's happening? Of course, AI. And Magnus was talking about interns. So this is what interns do. Actually, it took me a while to make the picture incorrect. AI is becoming smarter and smarter. It can even count the fingers sometimes. So the thing is, AI is everywhere. AI is used by everyone. That's why I want to focus on 3 other points that are not directly related to AI. So one thing is integration. Your security has to be integrated. So whatever solutions they're already using, they're not useful anymore. Traditional antiviruses, even though people got used to them, they're just not able to protect. And the thing is, you also need to have visibility to what's going on. What Karen was telling you about, there are so many different types of attacks. And you need to know what is going on in your system, what's going on in your network, what are your employees are doing. You have to have visibility. The other thing that's happening is return of good old backup. Like traditionally, a lot of service providers, they have this mentality that we need to protect the servers, we need to protect the data in the databases, on the servers, but we don't have to protect the endpoints. Like, who cares? There will be an antivirus. If something happens to that endpoint, we will just reimage it. We will recover and we're good. We can keep running. Now, when you have to protect every endpoint, it doesn't work anymore. Why do you need backup? You need backup, you need secondary copy of data so your security solution can learn from that secondary copy of data. What we do at Acronis, we remove malware from backups, we discover malware in backups, we use backups to understand the patterns of the data modification so we can discover the malware that's very hard to discover with a traditional antivirus. The backup is also a way to do the automated remediation and recovery. But there's another application of a secondary copy of data. It is important for investigations. So when you have an attack, even if you stop the attack, block the attack, you actually have to understand how did that happen? How did they enter my system? What did they do? Did they steal something? Did they modify something? And this is where you need to use secondary copy of data. And so circling back to how do we build business on cybersecurity? This is what we do. We explain people about all those types of attacks that can happen. We explain to them that we need to have this integrated security. But integrated security also means the complete data protection. It's not only an antivirus. It's not only an XDR solution. It is a solution that can create a copy of the data, use that copy of the data, and recover from that copy of the data. And that is an opportunity for all of us to offer customers the protection that includes cybersecurity, data protection, disaster recovery, management, automation, and all types of services. And for partners, for the resellers, it means that you can provide customers different levels of protection. And for you, it means it's an upsell opportunity. You can start with basic security and then upsell to higher tier security. You can start with backup and upsell to security. You can start with security and upsell to backup and complete data protection. So there are multiple opportunities to package the services to the customers to provide them the complete cybersecurity. And I want to finish with just one thought, that cybersecurity is complicated. Cybersecurity is scary. If you listen, Karen, before you go to bed, you may not be able to sleep. But the thing is, we have the tools, and we actually can win in this game. But to do that, we need to convince our customers to use the modern tools. For us, it's an opportunity to sell more, but at the same time, we're doing a very good thing. We're protecting the infrastructure of the whole world. And I know it may sound weird, but think about it. Every small business that you protect potentially is a vendor of another corporation, a government. That small business can be used to penetrate through the supply chain attacks. So protecting every little customer means protecting the whole IT infrastructure. And that's all that I have for you for now. Thank you.